Good morning. So, today we are going to discuss what are genres, which is specific reference to film genres. So, as most of us here know that genres literally mean a category or a type. A typical genre is a collection of instantly recognizable stylistic features. In literature, for example, you have, I am talking very broadly now, literary genre of poetry or drama or fiction, short story, non-fiction. So, these are the broad genres, the broad categories. You might very often come across courses like course in drama or a course in let us say poetry or fiction. A subcategory would be a course in American drama or Latin American fiction. So, those are subgenre which form an integral part of a broader category. So, likewise in cinema also we have genres. Some of the most recognizable or rather instantly recognizable genres are the Western. We are basically talking in the American context. The Western, so far we have been talking very often about Western being an out and out American product, American creation or Hollywood creation. So, Western and gangster, they are the most popular genres of American drama. We also have musicals. Even in our country, musicals is a very popular genre. We have thriller, and then we have spy genre, which is a subgenre of a broader category like an action movie. We have martial arts cinema, think Hong Kong cinema, the Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Donnie Yen kind of cinema. So, that is martial arts cinema, but then we have its variants in every part of the world. I mean, Kill Bill was a good example of a martial arts cinema, but then Kill Bill is a specific category, is in a specific category of its own. We also have a very popular romantic comedy, the popularly called rom-com, and then we have science fiction. We have already done films like Blade Runner, and which was based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Philip K. Dick's novel, and we have also done the Matrix trilogy. So, those are the popular genres of cinema, but then we have many more, and we are going to look at how genres are defined and categorized and analyzed, and then we will be discussing gangster as a popular genre, because gangster cinema is of course it is a Hollywood product, but then even in our own country it has become a very important genre of cinema, and then we will see how Indian cinema has interpreted and reinterpreted the genre of gangster cinema. So, genre usually what does it evoke? It evokes the look of the characters, physical environment and significant objects. We are going to read that in detail. So, what is the look of the character, what are the objects, how are iconographies formed in genres. Genres, identities, usually what purpose do they serve? The basic purpose that they serve is to preserve a film's integrity. In one of my earlier classes, Shweta was asking, and she answered that rom-com happens to be her favorite genre. My response to that was, if someone would who is a follower or an admirer of romantic comedy as a film genre, filmmakers usually make a movie to cater to that specific group of audience. but so the way the film is marketed and advertised and projected, it's aimed at a particular group or subgroup of audiences. So let's assume a movie like Clueless, Alicia Silverstone, and we had a remake of that in Hindi, Aisha. So films like Clueless or Aisha, they cater to a particular group, they cater to a niche group. That's largely female audience, girls who would be interested in maybe the lighter pursuits of life, the devil wears Prada. Okay, but then think of another genre like the Bond trilogy or James Bond movies. So these genres or these groups of films, they have their own fan following. So that's what I mean when I say that genres preserve a film's integrity and identity. Genres cater to a group of audience, and people go to a movie expecting something out of it. So followers of romantic comedies, they go to a movie like The Devil Wears Prada or Clueless expecting something out of it. You have a movie like The Shop Around the Corner, Lubish's movie, which was remade as You Got Mail, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. So a popular romantic comedy screenplay was by Nora Ephron. These kinds of films, they have their own following. Okay, so when you advertise a movie like this is a remake of a very popular romantic comedy of the 40s, The Shop Around the Corner, and then the audiences in the 90s, they expect an updated version of the same film. For example, Clueless is advertised as a contemporary updated version of Jane Austen's Emma, and Aisha is advertised in India as an updated version of Emma, yes, but also a remake of something like Clueless. So the audiences that go to watch those movies, they know what to expect, and genres rarely fail to live up to the expectations. Sometimes they do, but then that's another story. So genres, in other words, allow for expectations where certain things can happen and certain things can't. And when certain things happen out of the box, out of character in a particular genre, then we get instance of genre bending or genre blending, and that's also something we are going to look at today. Subgenres. So what are subgenres? I was just talking about courtroom drama as a subcategory of a drama. So what's a subgenre? Think a film like the James Bond trilogy. Now what is it? It's a subgenre of espionage thriller movie, but then again the broad genre would always remain action adventure genre, and a detective or thriller genre or an espionage becomes a subgenre category. Okay, so subgenre, we were talking about subgenre is defined by specific characteristics. For example, you have a very popular category, horror cinema. Now horror has been interpreted in several countries in different ways. So Psycho is generally characterized as a horror film. Okay. We also have a subgenre of vampire films. Vampire films. And then another subgenre becomes a slasher film. So I know what you did last summer. I still know what you did last summer. So those films become a subgenre of the broad category horror cinema. Now they, as we were talking about, genres cater to a particular audience, and when you have a horror, perhaps yes, it is catering to a particular group of audience, but when you have slasher cinema or J horror, then the niche group gets more visible, more defined, more redefined. Okay, so you know that perhaps you are targeting an age group which is between 16 and 25. Okay, and those are the age groups that generally enjoy J horror and slasher films. We have post-apocalyptic cinema, which is a subgenre of science fiction. A movie like The Road, which was based on Cormac McCarthy's novel, is you can categorize it as a subgenre of science fiction. Noah, we have already discussed Noah at length in one of our earlier classes. Noah is a category of gangster cinema, and we will see how Noah becomes a category of gangster cinema and why it happened. We have already discussed Hays Code to some extent. We have sports films like our own Chak De India was a very popular sports film. Sports films in India unfortunately are not very popular, not very common, but Chak De India happened to be an exception because perhaps because of the presence of a star. Okay, so sports films are a very good example or of subgenre of drama category, because there is a lot of drama, there is a lot of action as well as dialogue and high conflict, strong characterization. These are the features we discussed in one of our earlier classes. How a movie is made. So we talked about a strong narrative, plot, then we talked about characterization and conflict. Conflict creates high drama in most sport movies. Moneyball, yeah, Brad Pitt's. So that's a very popular and successful example of a sport film, and it's a drama. Any Given Sunday, Oliver Stone's. Okay, it's one of the most inspirational films of all time. That is a subcategory of drama. Then we also have courtroom dramas, another subgenre of drama. The Lincoln Lawyer, I think Matthew McConaughey, is a very popular. To Kill a Mockingbird, starring Gregory Peck, which won him his only Academy Award. To an extent, even a movie like Scent of a Woman, which ends in almost like jury-like setting, where the boy is on trial, he is about to be expelled, and then Colonel Frank Slade comes and defends him. So those kinds of, Scent of a Woman is a very good example of a typical drama. It has lots of drama, a lot of conflict. It's also a coming of age kind of film, especially for the boy. And it's a journey which these two men take and how they evolve over a period of weekend. Theoretically, a lot of work has been done. There has been a theoretician, Dudley Andrews, whose theories we are going to consider. But then a very recent book comes from someone called Rick Altman, who has written a book, Film/Genre. It's not slasher film, but it's a film genre. So what does he say? The gist of the book is that the genre film uses the same material over and again, and it's not said in a derisive way. It's a very positive statement about genre films. Same material over and again. Yeah, I don't know if you remember those two words that we did in one of our earlier classes, the concepts of fabula and sujet. Fabula is a story, sujet is the way a story is told. So fabula is a story. Once upon a time something happened. Okay, once upon a time in America, Sergio Leone's film, it's a gangster film. Yeah, but and it uses the same material over and again. Have you watched the movie, Sandeep? in America, not Once Upon a Time in West, you have heard. Yeah. So, Once Upon a Time in America is a supreme example of a highly successful gangster movie, but it does not, it has all the tropes, it has all the characteristics, the basic raw material is present of a gangster movie, but then the sujet, the way the movie unfolds is something very different. Then it does not follow the Godfather trajectory. Now, the Godfather is a very classic linear kind of plot. It has identifiable characters, it has conflict, the kind of conflict where we root for the so called anti-hero in spite of his weaknesses, in spite of his fatal flaws. We still root for Don Corleone, we still root for Michael Corleone in spite of their very obvious flaws. Once Upon a Time in America takes all the tropes of a gangster movie and then turn them over their heads. What does it do? We don't have, the first rule that he violates, Sergio Leone directed the movie, and the first rule he violates is of a linear plot. So, the plot is anything but linear, it follows back and forth in time and very non-linear narrative. The first 15 minutes are absolutely silent and extremely violent. Then, second element of plot is conflict. Yes, there is plenty of conflict and we have lots of violence, lots of bloodshed on screen, but it is not the normal good versus evil. These people kill out of greed and in the quest for power and ambition. So, again this kind of narrative departs from the essentially feel good element of the Godfather. After all, no civilians are ever killed in the Godfather. Yeah, but Once Upon a Time in America, friends kill friends, brothers betray brothers because just for power, and we are not talking about vendetta, it's for naked greed and ambition that crimes are committed here. Then we have characters. A movie like The Godfather has very relatable, very identifiable characters in spite of their essential flaws. However, in Once Upon a Time, we do not have a single sympathetic character. Okay. And we are talking about the presence of a star of the stature of Robert De Niro. Okay, but there is hardly a point when we root for the hero or when we relate to the hero because he is created in such unsympathetic tones. Okay, so what's happening now? Using the same material, yes, but it's the way the story is told. It's all in the hands of a filmmaker what he does with his material. So yes, it's a genre, it's a recognizable genre, a gangster genre. It fulfills your expectations, but then it's the treatment that differs in Once Upon a Time in America, and it prevents it from becoming a clone of The Godfather. So that's the difference. Now, Rick Altman also suggests that genres are of repetitive nature. Yes, we know, and then repetitive nature seems to diminish the importance of each film's ending along with cause and effect sequences. Now, what does it mean that diminishes the importance of each film's ending? You know, what Altman is trying to tell us is that genre films depend on the cumulative effect of the film's often repeated situations, themes and icons. So, these are the takeaway. Genre films depend on the cumulative effect of the film's often repeated situations, themes and icons, and you know, for example, we can take example like in gangster movies, invariably we never find the hero walking away in the sunset, okay, the way we find in a western. There is also, Western is also kind of a genre, and there we know that the Western hero will never settle down. He has to ride away. He has to restore balance or equilibrium in a society which has been disrupted because of some evil character. So the hero walks in, restores and leaves. So that's because there is some other town waiting to be rescued. That's the idea. So endings are often repeated. That's what we mean when he says genre films depend on the cumulative effect of the film's repeated situations. So we know this is what is going to happen in a typical Western. This is how a typical gangster is going to end. So gangster hero, how he dies on screen. James Cagney, we are talking about the 30s Public Enemies. Then Edward Robinson in Little Caesar, Paul Muni in 1930s Scarface. So they have to die in the end. Okay, there is no hope or no life of promise and roses and wine ending for the gangster hero. So what Rick Altman is trying to suggest is that that genres prevent that element of surprise. Right? Can you think of more examples, Sandeep?
For the hero dying.
Yes. Is there any gangster movie where you have seen the hero not dying?
Recently, Ben Affleck's The Town.
Okay.
At the end of the movie, he escapes and police can't catch him.
Mm.
And in a way, even the Goodfellas is.
In a way, yeah, but the Goodfellas is quite different in the sense that it's a life on the run. He will never find peace. It's a life worse than death. Okay, where he lives a life which is, he knows that the sum total of his life has come to nothing. Okay, he lives in a kind of a witness protection program and is always threatened, always lives under the looming shadow of threat. So it's a very inglorious kind of an end for that hero, Ray Liotta character. Okay, so he is not from where he started and the way he ended. So it almost ends with a whimper, not with a bang, the way Scarface ends. Think Al Pacino's end in Scarface, 1983. I mean, he ends with a bang, right? Have you watched the movie? Yes. So that's the way gangsters are supposed to die. But again, in Once Upon a Time in America, the ending is extremely ambiguous. There are two gangsters there. One is played by James Woods, and of course, the leading man is Robert De Niro. We are left wondering at the end whether the De Niro character is dead or not, or whether he is just whether he is already dead and dreaming the entire movie. Okay, so it ends on a very ambiguous note. Okay, we just find a truck driving towards him, and then it passes him by, and then he looks on. So whether the idea that is that if his life has been a garbage truck, that a truck that collects garbage and takes away. Is that what Sergio Leone is suggesting? Or whether he has been moved over by that particular garbage truck and is taken away to be disposed, for his body to be disposed. So you never know how it ends. But again, it's a very inglorious ending. He doesn't die a hero's death. How does Johnny Depp die in Public Enemies? He shot dead. Outside the movie theater? Okay. So that they have taken from John Dillinger's real life. So genre production is allied with, again I am quoting Rick Altman, genre production is allied with decorum, nature science and other standards produced and defended by the sponsoring society. Now, the other theoretician that I was referring to, Dudley Andrews, and he has written a book called Concepts in Film Theory. This is how he explains genres. Genres are specific networks of formulas which deliver a certified product to a waiting customer. So, that is what we have been talking about. You expect romantic comedy, it is a certified product, and there is a waiting and willing customer for this kind of film. The other day, I was reading an interview by Ajay Devgan, and he has done a remake of an 80s pot boiler, Himmat Wala. Now, he says that there are very few characters who can pull off a movie like Himmat Wala. Originally, it starred Jitendra and Sridevi. It's a regular masala pot boiler, and but it was a smash success. It was a huge blockbuster, and it spawned off a series of clones. After that, we would find the same pair enacting the same kinds of dances and the same kinds of, the comic subplot and the same kinds of comic villains. It was like an assembly line production. And now, why go back to that genre of cinema? Why go back to the Himmat Wala kind of 30 years down the line, when cinema has progressed so much, when people are making films like Gangs of Wasipur, where a movie which Martin Scorsese has praised. Yeah, and then why do we need a Himmat Wala now? Because there is a set of audience willing to lap it up. Okay, the same kind of audience which exists for a film like Singham, or for a film like Dawang or Bodyguard. So, I am not being derisive about the audience. I am saying that there is a certified product which is delivered to a waiting and willing consumer and customer. So, every kind of a movie has a set of consumer or customer. The other day we were talking about the end of new Hollywood cinema. Now, many people, many great directors of that period have lamented the fact that the movement might have died down, and there were so many reasons, and we have discussed those reasons. But it was not as if the audiences had rejected the movement. They do blame the audience for lapping up a movie like Star Wars or Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yes, so Jaws. Yeah. So perhaps these movies have caused, I think you used the word, dumbing down of the audience. Perhaps there is an imbecile set of audience which will always be there in majority in every society. But that does not necessarily mean that a movie like American Graffiti or American Gigolo, or Days of Heaven wouldn't find its audience. There would always be people who would be there for that kind of cinema also. So, how I was trying to connect the whole thing is that the new Hollywood cinema also, those great filmmakers also felt that the movement died down because of their own mismanagement and because of certain faults in the distribution pattern of cinema. There is always a certain audience expecting a certain kind of cinema. You are a young man in your early 20s perhaps. What kind of cinema are you waiting for?
At the present, I'm waiting for that string of summer blockbusters, Man of Steel and those kind of things.
Man of Steel, okay, that's Superman. Yeah, because it's produced by Christopher Nolan, so you assume that there will be an edge to the movie. It's not going to be their saccharine sweet Superman kind of story. So, it's not going to be a repeat version of what Christopher Reeves was all about, okay, but because it has Christopher Nolan managing things, so something else would emerge out of it. So, a more Dark Knight kind of Superman. So, perhaps that's your genre of cinema. Okay. But were you waiting so eagerly for the Jeremy Harmer version of Born Identity? though you may be a fan of the Bourne trilogy.
I wasn't really.
Really, yeah. So it's a number of things that make a genre, and star presence becomes an integral feature of a genre. So therefore, Ajay Devgan is right when he says only few actors can pull off a Himmatwala. You see, even for that brand of cinema, you need a certain kind of star presence. Convince big enough, okay, who enjoys that kind of fan following, which ensures a kind of opening for that kind of cinema, which ensures a kind of backing for that kind of cinema. Perhaps Salman Khan can pull that off. But if you look at certain heroes who are known out and out only for um, very arty, very classy kind of cinema, they will never be able to pull off the Himmatwala genre of cinema. So genres deliver a certified product to us. You know, much of our pleasure of watching Bourne trilogy comes, yes, they are very well made films, and some of us who have read the original novel, Robert Ludlum's novel, we know what to expect. But then the second part and the third part, they deviated from the original plot. But the first plot was quite faithful to the novel, and we knew what to expect. And of course, the way Matt Damon essayed the role. So much of the film's pleasure came out of that. But when another actor reprises the same role, we feel let down. No one was, but it's the same, like, you know, stardom plays such an important part in making a genre. Can you imagine any other actor in a Mission Impossible series? You will feel terribly let down, terribly cheated if someone else does. So genres have to satisfy certain expectations. Genres ensure the production of meaning by regulating the viewer's relation to the images and narratives constructed for them. Genres construct the proper spectator their own consumption. So that's what genres construct, a kind of spectator, and that spectator becomes a willing and regular consumer of that particular product. It's like creating a brand. Okay, you have a so I'm just now at this point going to read you a quotation from this book by D.K. Home. It's called Essential Quentin Tarantino. And what does, because we have been talking about how genres function, how genres satisfy certain expectations. Genres are like brands and they cater to consumers. Yes, so it's like, you know, you use a certain quality or brand of toothpaste, you wouldn't go for anything else. So perhaps the girl next door is not waiting for Man of Steel. Okay, she might be expecting Anna Karenina or The Great Gatsby. Okay, but someone else here might be expecting or awaiting with bated breath for the next series of sequence of, let's say, why is Christopher Nolan not making the Dark Knight series again? Okay, what happens if someone else starts redoing the franchise? Okay, that's the kind of audiences that we have. Now, what does Tarantino say? You know, most movies that win a lot of Oscars, I can't stand. That's Tarantino talking. And then he gives you a list of movies, and that's breathtaking. The kind of movies he can't stand. Sophie's Choice, Ordinary People, Kramer versus Kramer, Gandhi. Okay, so he said these are the movies that win a lot of Oscar Academy Awards, and I can't stand them because all that stuff is safe, generic, and coffee table kind of stuff. Now, why do we call genres safe? He says they are generic stuff. Gandhi is a very safe bet. Don't you agree?
Follows all the tropes of
biopic. Yes, it has a very universal theme, individual against society. So is Lincoln. Okay, Lincoln again goes back to Spielberg's tried and tested formula. In spite of his greatness, what is Lincoln? One man against society, a loner against society, a person who who has come up against all odds, and that man against society. So the sympathy factor for the hero is always there, and that's typically Spielberg. You see, it's all there. Okay, but then again, if you come to a movie which defies genre, like Once Upon a Time in America, what happened to Once Upon a Time in America when it was first released? It was a terrible, terrible, resounding flop. Why? All these three things, it defied categories, it defied genres. So, the non-linear plot, uh, absence of a very palatable conflict. Conflict is there, but it's not the kind of conflict we expect, the good versus evil kind of conflict, individual versus society kind of conflict, that's missing. And identifiable characters, those things are just not there. Okay, these people are extremely selfish, and the only ambition in their lives is to further their own goals, further their own ambitions. So, therefore, they are not the typical feel good kind of heroes. They are not the kind of heroes who are out to change the society. They are not the Gandhis or the Lincolns. Okay, they do not say, or even Don Corleone. So, they do not satisfy any kind of demands, although the movie, if you watch it today, it has become a classic. It may not figure on Roger Ebert's top 100 list, it may not be a canonized movie, but it is a classic. If you watch it, it has it is the kind of movie which has become a cult now. Okay, a cult which has all the elements in the right place. I mean, it's a very carefully crafted, magnificently acted movie. You can see a lot of attention has been paid to every single detail. It's that kind of movie. Now, coming back again to Rick Altman and his film genre. So, he gives us 10 tendencies of film genres. And what are those tendencies? He says that genres have a distinct border and can be firmly identified. A typical genre he talks about has, these genres have a distinct border and can be firmly identified. Genre theorists seek to describe the already existing genres. The internal functioning of genre text is considered entirely observable and objectively describable. Internal functioning of genre. Can you think of certain examples, Sandeep? Internal functioning of genres are observable and describable. Okay. How genres, how the discrete items exist. Okay. I will just give you a very good example. How will a typical gangster hero dress up? Okay, suit. Okay, always, even if you look at a very popular recent 2009 movie, Public Enemies, okay, the black coats as dark as crow's feather, they are all there. The creamy cars, so the iconography is so well established. So these are observable items. That's what we mean, right? Internal functioning of genre text is considered entirely observable. You can see, they come in those hats and those suits with overcoats, okay, designers, all, certain kinds of cars, certain kinds of settings. These tropes are describable. You know that this is what you expect. Now, will you find the same tropes in a romantic comedy?
Suits and stuff.
You will find more attention is given to the girl's clothes. Yeah, the boy can be dressed anyhow. I mean, if he is a rich boy or maybe a tycoon kind of a hero, he will be dressed likewise. But the girl is equally important. Okay, so plenty of attention is paid to detailing the girl's character. Girl is a very integral part in a romantic comedy. Woman is a girl or woman, but the female character is extremely important in a romantic comedy, and these can be described. So, you know, can you give me some very good examples from a typical romantic comedy? I give you one example. You got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle.
As good as it gets.
As good as it gets, or the recent one for which Jennifer Lawrence has won her Academy Award.
Silver Lining Playbook.
Yeah, Silver Lining Playbook. Yeah, so do you think that's a good example of romantic comedy? Now, do you think enough attention is given to both leading characters? How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. So, both the male and the female leads are given equal importance, and these films, they have a standard mise en scène. Okay, what is mise en scène? The way people dress, the soundtrack, the lights, the setting, they are of a certain kind which are observable and describable. So, you got Mail, such a feel good movie, and are you going to find interplay of lights and shadows there in You Got Mail like a Noah? No, but in a typical Noah, typical gangster, yes, you will find. So, instantly recognizable features and characters, that is what we mean, describable. You look at certain kind of mise en scène and you say, ah, this is a romantic comedy. You watch a melodrama. The other day we were talking about Douglas Sirk's Written on the Wind, All That Heaven Allows, when we were discussing classic Hollywood. And we said melodrama, a woman's picture, a melodramatic woman's picture will always have certain kind of mise en scène, which is instantly recognizable. You will have statue of Venus on one end and a statue of Cupid, a little Cupid, marble Cupid in another end. Will you find that in a gangster movie? Cupids and Venuses? No. You will find whatever is latest in the guns or the drugs deal. So, those are the standard observable features. Rick Altman further says that texts with similar characteristics systematically generate similar readings, similar meanings, and similar uses. So, again we are talking about genres, and genres are texts with similar characteristics. They generate similar readings, similar meanings, and similar uses. So, when you talk about an action genre and a subgenre is a superhero movie, okay, and superhero movie can be described and be compared only with another superhero movie. You can't compare superhero movie with a romantic comedy, right? Unless, but when you make a superhero, the Dark Knight kind of a superhero movie, then you can compare it with film noir or film or even gangster. Okay, because certain similarities do exist because of the way the Dark Knight character has been constructed by Nolan, the way he interprets. Okay, so you know that this is a Christopher Nolan, he is an author, this is the kind of movie he makes. We know his hero, we know his hero who is always morally ambivalent. He has shown us earlier in smaller films, Insomnia, Memento. We know that in Christopher Nolan, we cannot expect a very straight, very feel good kind of a hero, very clean cut hero. When you watch a Christopher Reeves Superman hero, you know that what to expect from him. Okay, so therefore, similar characteristics, similar systematically generate similar readings. similar meanings. Think of more examples. Similar texts generate similar meanings.
27 dresses and all. They all have the same ending, similar conflicts.
Very good example. I would like to think of two classic romantic comedies of the 80s and 90s, Notting Hill and Four Weddings and a Funeral, both starring Hugh Grant. Four Weddings and a Funeral, Hugh Grant and Andy McDowell, and Notting Hill, Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant. Okay. And you watch starring the same British actor, you have all the characteristics of a very charismatic Hugh Grant, okay, when he was in his late 20s, early 30s. So, what kind of he was a classic romantic hero in the Cary Grant mold. So, you know what to expect from it. So, Four Weddings and a Funeral will always be compared to Notting Hill, because similar kind of a movie, similar texts and similar meanings can be derived, similar mise en scène.
Now she always plays the same character. She plays this modern woman who's too busy for romance and stuff. And at the end of all the movies, she finds time for romance. In Knocked Up, 27 Dresses, The Ugly Truth, same character she plays.
Okay, yeah. We had a romantic comedy when George Clooney started off his career. That was early and mid 90s. He was a major television actor anyway. But then one of his earlier successful movies as a leading man was One Fine Day, Michelle Pfeiffer. And if you watch the movie again, it has all the characteristics of a typical romantic comedy. Boy meets girl. Here it's a woman, a single mother meets a recently divorced father. Okay. So, both of them have a child each, and how they interact, and the entire movie takes course within a span of a day, one fine day. Yeah, they start off hating each other, at the end of the day they are in love. So, there is a relationship between them. So, we know now you understand that certain meanings can be read. I am also now going to talk to you about our own gangster cinema. We have been talking about gangster cinema there, okay, Public Enemies and Scarface, what else, Little Caesar and The Godfather, Once Upon a Time in America. So, these are classic gangster films. Do we have the category of gangster cinema in our country?
We have Satya Company in Sarkar.
We have the trilogy by Ram Gopal Verma, Satya Company, Sarkar. Earlier, Amitabh Bachchan played a gangster hero in a couple of blockbusters. What were they? Oh, Sholay is not. Sholay is a buddy movie. It's a western curry, and what? Dawn comes under the category. And you just gave me an example. Ben Affleck in The Town. He rides away into the sunset. The way Shah Rukh Khan Dawn ends. Okay, but Bachchan's Dawn ends very differently. The gangster hero dies and his look-alike takes his place, and his job is to finish off the gang. So, he is actually a good guy. In Shah Rukh's version, the good guy is killed, which this is a suspense which is revealed to us at the end of the movie. The gangster hero is still alive, and then we have the sequel to that movie where the gangster hero commits a heist and again rides away into the sunset with a girl on his arm. Yeah, Dawn 2 is more like a heist movie, but the first Dawn, again starring Shah Rukh and directed by Farhan Akhtar, the same team comes back together in second Dawn also. But the first Dawn is a literal remake of Bachchan's Dawn, which was released in the 70s, which was a feel-good gangster drama. But Shah Rukh's Dawn ends very differently. Similar readings were done. Scholars worked on that remake also, because it's a very interesting take on the original version. We also have a classic gangster, Diwar, again starring Bachchan, in which he plays a gangster. We also of late we had a movie, Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, our own version of the gangster genre. And what about Agnipath? Wouldn't you call that a gangster movie? Bachchan's as well as Hrithik Roshan's. Thank you very much.